Hello and welcome to the next episode of my channel where I'll be taking up a lesson, The Portrait of a Lady from Class 11, written by Khushwant Singh. Now, in this chapter, we are going to know about the changing relationship between the author and his grandmother. At the beginning of the lesson, the author remembers his grandparents. The author recalls his grandmother as a very old lady. For the 20 years that the author had known his grandmother, he had found her old and wrinkled. It was hard for him to believe that she had once been young and pretty and she had a husband. The author's grandparents' portrait hung on the wall of the drawing room. He wore a big turban. His clothes were loose. He looked at least 100 years old. Looking at his portrait, one could not imagine him in his youth with his wife and children. The thought of the grandmother being young and pretty was almost revolting to him. He could not accept, he could not believe that his grandmother could have been young ever. She was short, fat, and slightly bent in stature. Her face was a crisscross of wrinkles, lines everywhere. Her silvery white hair was scattered over her wrinkled face. The author remembered her moving around the house in spotless white clothes, with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stoop, and the other hand counting the beads of her rosary. Her lips moved constantly in inaudible prayer. He couldn't hear what she was saying, but he could see that she was praying. To the author, she could never have been pretty, but she reflected a divine beauty. That means she was not good to look at, but she had a beautiful soul. She had a divine beauty. Now, we are going to know about the first stage in their relationship when both of them were good friends. His parents left him to study and stay with her when they shifted to the city. In the village, his grandmother took care of all his needs. She was quite active and agile. She used to wake him up in the morning and get him ready for school. She bathed and dressed him, and while she bathed him, she used to chant her mantras so that he could learn the mantras by listening to her. She didn't force him to learn, but she kept on chanting the mantra when she gave him a bath. Then she would fetch his wooden slate, which he had washed already and plastered with yellow chalk. She would take an earthen ink pot and a red pen and tie them in a bundle and hand it to the author. After having a thick stale chapati and a little butter and sugar spread on it for breakfast, they used to leave for school. The author's grandmother always accompanied him to the school as it was attached to the temple. The priest taught children the alphabet and the morning prayer, and the children sat in two rows in the veranda. They would sing the alphabet or the prayer in a chorus. While the author learned his lessons at school, his grandmother would read scriptures in the adjoining temple. So they were always together. And on the way back home, they would feed the stale chapatis to the dogs. So this shows us that the grandmother was very caring, especially towards pets. Next comes the turning point in their relationship when they moved to the city to stay with the author's parents. In the city, the author went to an English school in a motor bus. The grandmother could not accompany him to the school as there were no dogs also on the streets. Now The grandmother took to feeding the sparrows in the house itself in the afternoon. As the years rolled by, they saw less of each other. Even though the grandmother took a lot of interest in his studies, but she couldn't help him because he was learning English, the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, and many more such things which she could not understand, and this made her highly unhappy. Sometimes she would ask him what the teacher had taught him, and she couldn't believe in the things taught at the English school. And she was very, very distressed to learn there was no teaching about God and the scriptures in the school. Moreover, she was very disturbed at the idea of music lessons being given at the English school. To her, music had lewd associations, and she considered music to be unsuitable for gentle folks. She felt music is only for beggars and harlots. So I hope you have understood till here. The next part we'll be covering in the part 2 of this lesson. Thank you.